to grow tomatoes. Last time I planted tomato seeds, that's 2 weeks ago, planted tomato seeds and I put them into this propagator. So we can now see how they're looking after the 2 weeks. And you can see that the seeds have all pretty well germinated. We've got nearly all of them there. I think there's only, well, that one's actually coming through. I think all of them are there actually in that first batch, and most of them in the second batch here. So a good success on germination. They're just a little bit small for potting on really, but as soon as you start seeing them like this, where you've got the two sort of real leaves just starting, that's the ideal time. Close up there of the size that they should really be, ideally. You can see there's a couple of real leaves there, true leaves, whereas these are seedling leaves. So, but I'm going to show you how to do that just now anyway. I'm going to be using 3-inch pots to plant the tomatoes in. These have all been sterilised, so they have been reused, but just sterilise them in J's fluid or something similar. And make sure they're well rinsed with J's, if you're using J's fluid. And I'm going to use the same type of compost, the seed and cotton compost, that I used to plant the tomato seeds in originally. I'm just going to fill up a couple of pots. Just quite simply fill them up. The compost should be slightly moist. You can often get very dry in the packets just sitting around, so it's good just to, sometimes you have to put a drop of water on it just to keep it fresh. Right, I've also got all my labels here, created lots of labels for each variety of tomato. So I've got all of those ready so that I can start planting. Now I'm going to get the plants out of the propagator. You see them all there, and I use a spatula. It's probably the ideal thing just to get into some of these plants here. I'm going to do the Alicante ones first. All I do is go down the edge of the tomato plant, just lift it out. You'll see there's a nice root on it, and quite simply put your fingers in, make a little hole in there, drop in the tomato plant and move the label to the edge. Just press it down a little bit gently. That's one tomato plant ready to go. The problem, of course, is that you run out of room to put them all. So you do have to shuffle stuff around a fair bit. I just continue planting more of these seedlings. Again, excellent root. And by doing this on a spatula, you're not touching any of the green. If you do want to handle the plants, you can hold these seed leaves, but don't hold the sort of main two, the new leaves, the main plant leaves. Make sure the hole's deep enough, get the root right in there, and the little plug just sits nicely in there. Now I've got to find my Alicante label. Here we go. Always make sure you know which ones you've got. It gets very confusing otherwise. The third one is still coming through there. It's very small, so I'm not going to plant that one just now. I'm just going to pot up these Bambino ones now. Again, good root. Plenty of roots there. And these will just get away perfectly well. They soon grow once they get into these 3-inch pots, and we'll be back again in about another 2 weeks or so, maybe 3 weeks, looking at moving these on into the bigger pots that I grow them in. I tend to grow the tomatoes in 10 or 15 litre buckets. They seem to do well in those. Okay, so now we can see that we've got all of the tomato plants potted up, all in the 3-inch pots. So that's quite a good little job done. What I'm going to do now is give them a drop of water, get them started. So give them a good soaking in. That should do, and they'll get away nicely now. Now that the tomatoes have been watered, it's important that they don't get below a temperature of 12 degrees C in the greenhouse. So at this point you do need to put a fan heater or something into your greenhouse, some form of heating. I use an electric fan heater and have it on a thermostat. I would make sure that you water the tomatoes every other day probably at this time of the year, and certainly make sure that the pots do not dry out. I thought I would just show you my peach tree as well, which is just looking magnificent at the moment. On the wall here. South facing wall, southwest facing, and the only problem is they have to go in and pollinate all of these flowers individually by hand. So that's going to be a little job for me right now. Just using a paintbrush, going into each of the flowers, and hopefully we'll get some peaches. We did last year. It's a young tree and we only got 2 peaches, but there was only about 7 flowers last year. This year there must be at least 100 flowers. So it'd be nice if we get 20 or 30 peaches. I'd be very happy. So that's all we do, just go around them like that. It's a bit of a time-consuming task. So thank you for watching. I'm Simon, and I'll show you next time how we pot on those tomatoes, put them into the big buckets. Bye.